Looks like the recording has started. So good morning and hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Dallin with the City of Oklahoma City and Stormwater Quality, as well as the Central Oklahoma Stormwater Alliance, or COSWA. I'd like to officially welcome everyone to this special training event. If anyone is interested in receiving a certificate of attendance for this training, please send me an email to request it. We can't accept those requests in chats because I won't have your email address associated with your username. So again, if you'd send me an email, I will be happy to get that to you within a couple of days of this webinar. If you haven't heard back from me, feel free to give me another shout just in case I missed your email. And I'm going to go ahead and place my email address into chat so you'll have that handy. Be sure to keep yourselves muted during this presentation. If you have any questions, just type them into chat. We'll be keeping an eye on that. And we will have time at the end for questions. And if there's something that's relevant to a specific slide, we can always ask Jeff to answer those questions right away. So today we will be hearing from Jeff King of American Excelsior. He will be sharing information on his presentation about a case study on a quarry reclamation project where they used all-natural rolled erosion control products, or RECPs. Jeff King is our speaker today. He has been employed by American Excelsior Company, Earth Science Division out of Arlington, Texas, as a territory manager since 2008. Mr. King has been involved in the planning and execution of numerous construction projects over the years. These projects have included pipeline right-of-way, frac tank builds, oil rig drill pads, residential, commercial, highway, and linear utility projects. Jeff holds a Certified Professional in Erosion and Sediment Control, or CPESC, certification through EnviroCert International, and he's also currently the president of the South Central chapter of the International Erosion Control Association. With that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Jeff, if you want to go ahead and take over that.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me again. I always enjoy getting to hop on here and visit with y'all. Let's see. I don't know. Hang on. I'm trying to. I've done this before. I don't know why it's not letting me share again. Sorry. Give me just 1 second. My apologies.
That's cool. You turned into a person in the share part of the screen.
Okie dokie. Yeah, we don't need that.
We can see the whites of your eyes.
All right. So let me share the document.
Yeah, they keep changing teams all the time. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah, well, I normally use Zoom, but this is different than what I've done before. Show more. I just want to show a window. Here we go. All right, there we go. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can see your slides. Right. Yep, perfect.
Excellent. Yeah, sorry about that. But no, I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to hop on and chat with you. Today we're going to talk about a project called the Pikeview Quarry Reclamation out in Colorado Springs. This is a project that I was actually involved in as well, because I cover for our company. I cover basically South Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and then essentially everything from west of Texas all the way to the coast from Mexico to Canada. And that includes Colorado. In fact, I was just out there this last week and got to see this project a couple of years after we did it. So anyway, here's my contact information. Many of you have it already, but if you don't, write this down. If you guys have any questions later on, or you need a resource for something, I'd be happy to help you. But we'll go ahead and get into it. Just a little bit about our company. So our company started in 1888. We were a packaging fiber company, the Kerlex wood fiber. In the 1960s, we invented the first rolled erosion control blanket, Kerlex 1. I'm not going to go over every one of these, but we did invent the first double net erosion control blanket in the 1980s. and the first heavy duty one. And then most recently, we rolled out a 3-net family of TRMs as well as a high visibility log. We have locations. Our corporate location or our corporate office is located out of Arlington, Texas, and then we manufacture a full line of straw products as well as wood products, the Curlex wood fiber. Those are manufactured in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. And then we have, and those are the Green Stars. So, and then the Green Star in Ohio and Alabama, that is where all of our straw-based products, so like single net straw, double net, straw coconut, things like that. So the reason why I wanted to mention this is because, you know, I've done the fiber type presentation before, but when we're talking about, you know, the evaluation of the fiber types and how they perform, I'm coming at this from an angle of we actually manufacture all of this type of stuff. So I'm not just going to sit here and say one is better because I don't have access or manufacture the others. These are factual things based on the performance of the fiber. So I just wanted to make sure I point that out. We do have the only large scale testing. We're the only manufacturer, I believe, in North America that has a large-scale ASTM testing facility up in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. We can do channel and slope analysis as well as some other sediment device things up there as well. Just to give you an idea of just what some of the large-scale testing looks like, over here on the left is large-scale testing in one of our flumes, and then we've got rainfall testing over here on the right with the risers and a Excelsior blanket there. We've hosted visitors from 35 different countries from around the world at different events up there at the lab. Just like other manufacturers, we have tools that can make your job easier if you're a designer or if you're an inspector and you want to know, make sure that the products have or the BMPs have been installed properly. We have a technical support library that's going to have the specifications, CAD details, what the staple patterns are, things like that. We have a YouTube channel that's going to have just different videos. Some of the videos you'll see in these presentations are on the YouTube channel. We also have a design software that will do free rainfall and channel erosion analysis. And inside that software, it's going to have a lot of the things that are in our technical library, like these CAD details and things like that. We want to make your job a little bit easier. So we offered numerous training opportunities, and we're fortunate enough to be able to work with organizations like COSWA, the IECA, and then we also do our own thing as well out in the different markets, whether that be with me, the territory manager, or we have some roadshow things where we'll bring some of our staff from the erosion lab down and do some things like that as well. We offer or equal letters and then copy and paste installation details for your DOT-approved products. We'll go. One of the resources that we offer is like a slope application guide, because when you're looking at a project, two of the things actually that you need to consider is one, how long you want the product to last, and then two, what the slope gradient is. So how steep the slope is. So other manufacturers will have similar documents where they'll have their products based on product longevity as well as the slope gradient like you see here. And so we'll do that for both channel and slopes. The channels are going to look a little bit different because those are going to be based off of longevity and then what your shear stress requirements are. And so you'll see here at the bottom, you've got a single net straw product that's like 12 months longevity and can only do 1.55 pounds of shear stress. And then up towards the top is where your synthetic products are going to be, where those are going to be permanent longevity with like 14 pounds of shear stress per square foot. So now we'll kind of get into the project, the Pikeview Quarry, just some of the history of this project. It's located in the Rocky Mountains just outside of Colorado Springs. It began operations around 1903. And then they closed it in 2018. So after 115 years of service, they closed it down. What interesting thing is they actually supplied half of the limestone to build the city, plus the limestone for the concrete used to construct the nearby United States Air Force Academy. The nickname they gave this area, what a lot of the locals call it, is the Scar, because the mountain is scarred, as it was before the Reclamation project. Since closing, one of the big priorities of the owner is stabilizing the slopes and then revegetating the landscape. I actually got to sit in. I wasn't on the roundtable because they didn't have the manufacturers, but last week I was at an event in Pueblo, Colorado, and they had the project owner. They had two contractors that worked on the project, and they had the Colorado Department of Natural Resources Mining Division person there, as well as the representative from the city of Colorado Springs, and then the distributor that actually worked hand in hand with all the parties involved to get the project designed and going. So the scope of it is to restore the roughly 150-acre quarry area and prevent future slope failures. These are 2-to-1 slopes that can be as long as like 300 feet. So, and these needed to be graded and reshaped. So they did the reshaping, but the slopes needed a proven, natural erosion control, best management practice, or BMP, that would protect them close, up to 24 months and encourage that vegetation growth. Early attempts to stabilize the site, they tried to use straw erosion control blankets, and that was unsuccessful. So what they realized was they needed to try a different approach and a different erosion control blanket to try to get that successful outcome. The fiber that they ultimately ended up using was the Curlex wood fiber. One of the benefits of it is it's naturally seed-free. Unfortunately, straw can contain weed seeds. Curlex wood fibers, these are going to expand when they get wet, and I'll be able to show you an example of that. And they conform to the soil irregularities. And one of the great benefits of the aspen wood fiber in general is it holds its weight in moisture. So when it gets wet, it'll then provide like this greenhouse effect, which is going to help protect your seed bed as well as hasten your vegetation. Straw is essentially a flat and hollow fiber. It's a byproduct. It's an agricultural byproduct. So it's a non-engineered fiber compared to like different wood fibers. And these fibers, specifically for the Curlex blanket, these are cut to be a certain size to meet that optimal performance. As mentioned, straw is an agricultural byproduct. So the plan. So what they planned on using was a combination of drill seeding, some biotic soil media, and fertilizer to revitalize that quarry and help aid in the vegetation growth on the slopes. What they ended up using was over 422,000 square yards of the Curlex double net Excelsior blanket with jute netting. And what this did is this provided a 100% biodegradable option, as well as being wildlife friendly, because the jute netting is, and I'll be able to show you why here in a bit, but because it's not a welded net, so the junctions on it are not welded, they'll flex, so that minimizes your animal entanglements. As mentioned earlier, these fibers are engineered, so they're specifically designed for the application. And obviously, the Curlex wood fiber blanket has got decades of proven performance. So what this is for basically is this is to show you the difference between the two when they get wet, right? So this to show you also how the Excelsior blanket can conform to the soil irregularities. On the left here, you've got our straw fibers over a track void, and on the right, you have the Excelsior blanket on the over a track void as well. Both are wet. We get both wet, and you'll see here, as the time-lapse video shows, the Excelsior fiber blanket actually expands, and it expands down into that track void. So there's no weak spot underneath that particular fiber. Whereas like the straw fiber, when it gets wet, it doesn't retain moisture like that, so it just stays flat and hollow. So you still have that void underneath the blanket. And what this is actually one of our flumes. So we have our straw blanket installed to manufacturer's recommendations as far as staple patterns, amount of staples, those kind of things. And it's going to show you a comparison of running water down this flume with the straw blanket, installed to those recommendations, as well as the Excelsior blanket installed to manufacturer's recommendations as well. So what you'll see here is the water coming down the flume. Those fibers, because they're flat and hollow, they rise up. And because they're rising up, that means that your blanket doesn't have that intimate contact with the soil. So that means that you're having erosion underneath your blanket in this particular application. And because of that, you'll see that the runoff here is actually brown. And that's obviously not a result that we want, right? Oh, let me go back. Sorry. Now you'll see the same water at the same flow rate going over the Excelsior blanket. And this blanket actually, when it gets wet, these fibers, they curl and interlock with one another, and then they Velcro down to the soil. So in other presentations, you've heard me talk about specific gravity, which means specific gravity is when, as far as from a value standpoint, anything with a specific gravity under a 1 means it will float. So that can be straw fibers, that can be some wood fibers, that can be poly-based fibers for like your TRMs, those kind of things. This is actually not floating because it has a specific gravity over a 1. This is floating because of the mechanical function of the actual fiber type and it Velcroing down to the soil. And because it's not floating, you can see here a difference in the runoff. It's actually crystal clear. And that's the kind of result that you want. Not all Excelsior is going to be created equal. There are Excelsior blankets that are made with different fiber types other than the aspen wood fiber. The benefit of the aspen wood fiber is that expansion that I showed you earlier. It will puff up, it'll expand and contract and give you that higher Manning's N or roughness. And what that allows it to do also is if you have sheet flow, you can see here, like this particular site here, like they had a rain event, you've got your rills here and you've got a lot of sediment starting to run down, but because of the roughness factor of that blanket, it actually traps the sediment about halfway in rather than going down out into the street. I mentioned the biodegradable netting. So standard erosion blankets like ECBs, ours and other manufacturers included, typically come with like a polypropylene plastic netting. For this particular project, they wanted to go with a biodegradable option. And a lot of areas are actually starting to choose that over the plastic net options anyway, just due to like microplastics becoming more and more of an issue, things like that. So all of the manufacturers are going to have a biodegradable net option. Ours is jute. You can see here, as mentioned earlier, so like look at the joints. These are not welded, so they're not fixed. So they'll flex and they'll move a little bit. And that's where it minimizes the animal entanglements. And again, available on most degradable erosion control blankets. Does have a cotton stitching. So these blankets are what we call stitch bonded, right? So for an erosion blanket, it can be for either a single or a double net, but and this one was actually a double net. So what that means is you have your netting on top, then you have your fiber matrix, then you have your stitching that goes through the blanket, kind of helps hold everything together, and then you have another layer of netting that goes on the bottom. So that's what we call stitch bonded. And in order for a blanket to be considered 100% biodegradable, every component of that blanket needs to be biodegradable, and that includes the stitching. These blankets actually have a cotton stitching, which is biodegradable. So you have your netting that's biodegradable, you have your fiber matrix that's biodegradable, and then you have your stitching that's biodegradable as well. Executing the plan, they had to use a ton of heavy-duty vehicles and equipment transporting a lot of soil that they actually brought in from other places. In fact, the owner was talking last week about how they allowed, for other construction sites for them to bring their fill dirt and just dump it there because they knew they were going to have to use it. So this is a look at just some of the heavy equipment that was used on this project. They had to have they had to do a lot of regrading and trying to smooth out the surface. So this is a look at the active grading there in the foreground and the Excelsior blanket. An aerial view of just some of the installation that they use. Obviously, I mean, 2 to 1 doesn't seem like it's that steep, but it actually is, especially when you start talking how long these slopes were. So, and I will also point out, I don't believe they had any safety issues or incidents the entire time they were installing these products, ours and others on this project, because they were pretty dialed in on making sure that their crews were safe and were able to install this in a timely manner, but being safe while doing it. These were 16-foot rolls that they used, and they used skid steers. They had an attachment on the skid steer, and their guys would actually normally, when you install a blanket, you're up at the top of the slope and you install your trenching and then you roll your blanket down. But because of the steepness and length of this slope, they were not able to really do it that way. So they had to actually start at the top and pull it down, as you can see here. And then they were able to join these up here. And then here's the result. This is the view of the Quarry site once all of the erosion control blankets were installed and it had been completed. And like I said, they tried a year before this to use a straw-based product, and they didn't have any luck with the vegetation. And you can see here, this hadn't been installed. I think from the time they started the installation on this to when they finished, I don't think it was more than a couple months. Establishing vegetation in Colorado is going to be a lot different than establishing vegetation, in Oklahoma or Texas, right? Like, it's not going to be as fast just because of the humidity we have here versus they have an arid environment there. So this vegetation they started establishing inside of just a couple months, and it's starting to grow. More emerging vegetation. I mean, gosh, just look at the scope though. So you see the guy over here on the left, and how he looks like an ant compared to the size of this slope. There were actually pronghorns that were on site as well, and other types of wildlife. And that's why that netting actually being the biodegradable option was important. So, again, we didn't have animal entanglements because also too, I'll point out, this was a very high profile project. They were doing news stories about this both before and during the project. And so there was a lot of community feedback and things like that on it. So obviously, if you're an owner of a project, you don't want wildlife entanglement anyway, but you certainly don't want wildlife entanglement and then being on the news for it. So that was the other reason why they chose the biodegradable option on that netting as well. And then here's another after pic. You can see they've got more vegetation that's established. It looks even better today. I wasn't able to get up close photos or anything last week. Hopefully, later this summer or spring when I'm out there, I can go out and get some follow-up photos. And then just a group of the contractors and all the parties involved in the project. And then I believe there's going to be some drone footage. Kind of recapping some of what we've already kind of gone over. Yeah, I think this is, and I'll also say this is the biggest project that I've ever been a part of, as far as that goes. I've never done one that's had that many yards of any kind of ECB put on it. And I've done some pipeline projects, but this one I think has got to be the biggest one I've ever done. Give you an up close look of what the installation looks like with the trenching and things like that. Other thing I'll also note, the Aspen Excelsior blankets, you do not have to overlap. So you can see these are butted up against each other because, again, when they get wet, those fibers will interlock with one another. And this is just a drone footage look of the initial results of that vegetation starting to come in. Installation tips for really any project. You want to make sure you have good soil conditions. You want to prepare the area that you are actually installing the ECB on. So you want to remove any kind of rocks, clods, or any kind of big sticks or roots or anything like that. You want to make sure that soil is as flat as possible. You want to also use the right seed mix too, right? You want to use the most the optimal seed mix for whatever your area is and whatever your native seed blends are. You want to also select the right soil amendments for depending on what your conditions are. And something I'll also point out, the reason this project succeeded wasn't just because of the blanket. There actually was a biotic soil media that was used that was crucial to making sure that we can actually get vegetation. Because I mean, the vegetation, that's the whole point, right? Like that's why you do these types of projects, because you want to revegetate and stabilize. And honestly, I don't believe that it could have been done in as efficient of a manner without that soil media. So I wanted to make sure I point that out. And the other key thing is to just make sure you follow the instructions, the installation instructions. It's funny, I get calls. I actually got 2 calls so far this year or people are calling me about blankets and they're like, hey, it won't come apart, it's unstuck or it's stuck together, and every so often we're having to cut. And I'm like, well, okay, is the netting on top? No. Oh, well, okay, so the netting has to be on top. And actually, if you look at like the product labels, usually there's going to be like an arrow pointing which direction that you need to unroll that blanket. And if you just follow the basic instructions like that, you shouldn't have any kind of problems with the install. Certain types of blankets do require overlaps. Again, the Aspen Excelsior blankets, the Curlex fibers do not require that. You want to make sure you follow the proper staple patterns. So as manufacturers, we have staple patterns on our websites, and these are going to be based on like slope gradient and different performance requirements. So you want to make sure you get the staple pattern that's as close to, what the conditions are on your site as possible. So that way, whatever product you're using performs up to standard. Staple specifications. Some require a different gauge metal, or if it could be a different length, or like for certain turf reinforcement match, instead of using like a U-shaped sod pin, you might want to use a helical twist pin. And if you use that, you want to use the right one for the right types of soil, whether you've got a cohesive soil or fairly loose soil. You want to make sure you do your trenching at the tops of your slopes. Give you an idea what it looks like to install one of these types of products. You really want to be at least 3 feet over the top of the slope. Yep, and make sure you use your trenching. Again, till and rake the soil as needed. Make sure you remove large obstructions. Make sure you've already added your seed and then your soil amendments. And we'll look at trench method A. So you want to make sure you place the soil down slope. You can also use mechanical methods for trenching as well. You want to pull the flap under the roll and place it in the trench, and then set the remaining roll on the other side. And again, if it's a single net product, make sure that netting is going to be on top. And then you'll staple. You want to make sure you put a good amount of staples in your trench. And then you'll soil fill that. And then just kind of pack that down if you can. And then you're going to unroll your blanket. See how clean that looks at the top already? I mean, that just looks clean. Yeah, and the final installation step is the same trenching and stapling method. And then you've got trench method B. Pull the flap 18 inches up slope of the trench. Past the slope of the trench, I'm sorry. Then you'll push it down in here. And again, make sure you add, a good amount of staples, so that way it stays nice and snug in there. You'll soil fill it. Then then you'll see here they pulled that extra section back over the side of the slope or the top of the slope, and then they will have stapled that down as well. Again, I can't stress how important it is to follow the staple pattern and the installation guidelines when installing this BMP or any other BMP for that matter. And I guess I kind of went a little fast on that one. Anybody have any questions or anything you wanted to point out from what you saw?
Right. So Wayne had a couple of questions. He wanted to know if all the plants used in that case study were native. I guess for
yeah, they would have definitely been native.
And then he asks, what is the biotic soil mix? Was compost a part of that?
I'm not entirely sure on the exact components of it, but I will go ahead and say it was a profile product for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what their what their mix consists of, but yeah, I do know that they did use their I believe it's called biotic earth.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So that's all our questions this time. That is a very big area that was covered. That's amazing. So.
Yeah, it really was, and the reason why I wanted to show it, and I know that the environment is obviously different there than it is here, but it's just mainly to show a couple things. One, you can still get performance with these biodegradable options, but then two, with proper planning, you can use a combination of BMPs to fix even the most difficult of problems. If you use them in the right way, and that's what the planners and the contractors did.
Cool. All right, that's all the questions at this time. You said you have another presentation, Keita?
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to give it, I mean, I can go through it fast. It's just basically it's the Curlex, that silt trap that y'all are starting to see in some of the residential and commercial construction up in the Oklahoma City market. Very big down here in Texas. If you want to hear about that, I'd be happy to give that.
Yeah, just at least give us an idea of what that is. That'd be great.
Sure. All right. I stopped sharing that. I'm going to close out of the Pikeview Quarry one. Hang on one second. Give me just 1 second. I'm so sorry. Don't save. There we go. And all right. Should be able to share. All right. So what this actually is this is what we call Curlex silt trap, and it's using an erosion control blanket as an alternative for sediment control, an alternative to silt fence. Okay. And just a little bit of background. Dirty water and mud washing into your streets. These are some of the things that we all see on construction sites. It's a nuisance, and at the same time, it's very difficult to kind of control that. But as the slide mentioned, ignoring it's not an option. So, I mean, here are two examples. You've got sediment-laden water here and debris going towards a storm drain. You got a ton of sediment out in the street. Obviously, you cannot have that. So the traditional option to actually try to control that is the silt fence, whether it be plain silt fence or wireback silt fence, depending on what your requirements are. Some of the different things you'll see when in the field and silt fence is used. It's a damming device. It give you that kind of result. Unfortunately, this is something that we've all seen out in the field. And how this happens is you have You have trades that come on and off of these job sites, right? Whether it's the electrical, the plumbing, or the bricklayers or whatever. Like, and I'm speaking in terms of like housing construction, and they are not they don't think about clean water or SWIP plans or anything like that. So they run over the silt fence, and this is the type of thing that you get on these sites. You see here on top, you've got the the sediment on top. You have more in the street, so that's going to be going into the storm drain. So I'm going to show you the innovative option for controlling your site sediment. This is called Curlex Silt Trap. It gives you an idea of what a site looks like with and without silt trap. On the right, your streets are clean. That green looks really pretty. On the left, but on the right, you've got sediment running out into the streets, which is going to be running into the storm drains. It's just not a good look. One of the things that's great about this is it's a low profile device. It does have a high performance capability, and that green, as I mentioned, it looks really good on your job site. And so what this will allow you to do is it'll allow you to have the performance and stay in compliance and avoid those fines. And it typically will save you money compared to a lot of the traditional options for sediment control. We use a green pigment, and it does not run off or become moldy like some dyes can do. This is a CAD detail. So this detail is actually for an 8-foot, and you can use a 4-foot buffer strip, or you can use an 8-foot. I know, for instance, the city of Broken Arrow over in the Tulsa area, they like to use, Tom likes to use like an 8-foot on a lot of the sites when they use this product for this application. But traditionally, it's actually a 4-foot is what's used down here. But you can see a really easy installation. You just butt it up against the curb. You put the staple about every 12 inches. You overlap every 12 inches at the end of the roll. Just show you what it looks like. It's aesthetically pleasing. That green, like I said, that green looks good. Gives you that grass look. So how does it work? Well, one, these fibers are naturally seed-free. They're Curlex aspen wood fibers. They help absorb that rainfall energy. And as I showed you, and you'll see a couple of the same videos actually in this one compared to the last one, but as I showed you in that video over the track void, the fibers will actually, when they get wet, they'll puff up, they'll expand when they're wet, and they'll contract when they're dry and dig into the soil. And that 3D fiber matrix gives you a higher roughness factor that, it's going to slow down that sheet flow approaching from the side. Yeah, that one doesn't work. Figures. Yeah, this is that same one. So you can see how it got wet and expanded down in that track void. We already saw that, so we won't spend a lot of time on that. Again, it gives you that that roughness. So, and roughness is going to equal performance. They used an 8-foot buffer strip here, but you can see they had a rainfall event. The fibers got wet and expanded, and then the sedimentation started moving off the site, and it was trapped about a third of the way into the blanket, which is what you want. And because what that's going to do is that's going to minimize callbacks where you have to have your contractors come out and sweep and clean up. It will filter out contaminants from anything from sediment to heavy metals. It will filter out hydrocarbons. And that fiber is actually recognized as a sorbent by the EPA. This is one of my favorite videos. It's on our YouTube channel. We started making this kind of video around the time of the BP oil spill out in the Gulf of Mexico. I believe that was in the early 2010s, somewhere around there. You can see here that fiber pulled that oil out of that water. Our straw fiber will not do that. Our straw coconut or our coconut fibers will not do that. Only the aspen wood fiber will do that. Just an idea, I already showed you some of the testing. This is a little bit of a further back view of what the large scale rainfall slope testing looks like. One thing I'll point out is you can see up to 83% of the soil was retained where the blanket was compared to just bare soil. Different vegetation options. So in housing, obviously sod is used a ton. You can either sod over the top of it, you can just leave it be and let the whatever vegetation grow up that's there, like they did here in this photo. The other thing I'll also point out too, this was actually a demo site where the developer wanted to see what it would look like with just the silt trap and with the silt fence. You wouldn't normally see these two things working together because that would be a bit of overkill. So just wanted to make sure I pointed that out. As mentioned, it is lower profile. We saw that silt fence earlier where you can tell that a trade person probably rolled over the top of it, would have had to do that. You can drive over this blanket. I mean, I wouldn't do donuts in it or on it, but you can drive over it. And the other thing I'll point out too is like if this gets damaged, you can actually splice this as well. So you can cut it in two sections and remove the section and then add another section of this type of blanket together, and those fibers will curl and interlock and it'll still perform. We've got decades of proven success. This application actually started down here in the Metroplex. I'm second generation with our company, and my father was actually one of the people that worked on getting that application up and running and introducing it with the city of McKinney and I believe the EPA. And this has been going since somewhere around the mid-90s to late 90s, if I recall. Some other areas to button up. The EPA's got some pretty stringent water quality discharge requirements. Obviously, y'all are out trying to enforce. Kerlex will help your developers and project owners meet that regulatory compliance standard that y'all have. And then just some other job site photos with that. You see the vegetation growing up through there. One other thing I'll point out too is because this is a degradable product, you can actually leave it, whereas like with the silt fence, that has to be removed and take up space in a local landfill. You don't have to do that with this type of BMP. I actually took this photo. This is my favorite photo. This is not far from here. This is Little Elm, Texas. I took this photo. This is actually my background wallpaper on my laptop. I love this photo. So you can see here they've got disturbed soil here. It rained, and then the runoff stopped at the end of the blanket. Got a little further in than that other one, but it still stopped on the blanket nonetheless, and was not out on the sidewalk. Other applications, you can use it for your detention ponds. This one here is a oil pad, just a slope. You can actually use this product in your lower flow channels, but if you're in a higher flow channel, you'd want to line the outsides with it and then put like a TRM down the middle. And again, as mentioned earlier, we want to be your industry resource, make your job easier. Our tech team can help. We've got all of our guidelines, things like that. We work with industry organizations like the Erosion Control Technology Council, which is basically, that's a group of the manufacturers that all get together and make sure to lobby for the industry, but also make sure there's quality assurance standards put forth to make sure y'all have a diverse mix of BMPs. And then, we work through the International Erosion Control Association too. We're all members of that. And hopefully y'all are all familiar with some of the benefits of joining that organization as well. And that's it.
Great, thanks. That's a really cool product too. So I'm curious, do you happen to have a video showing that in action during a rain event?
I don't. There may be something in the archives. I can actually check with our tech department and see if we have that. Because actually, that's a pretty cool idea if we don't. There's people way smarter than me that run that, and I can't imagine why they wouldn't have that. But if they don't, we'll work to get something like that for sure.
Okay, cool. And then Catherine and I both had kind of the same question. She asks, does this ever become full or need to be maintained? And then I would add, how do you maintain it?
You can either blow it out or you can, try to sweep it out if you can, or if it gets too full, like I said, you can actually splice it. So cut the part that is full and then add in just a new fresh piece.
So like that picture that you took, that you said you have, the picture that you have is like your wallpaper that you mentioned where it shows it after a rain event. Would you recommend like taking a section out to where that part's all the way like got mud down to the sidewalk area, maybe take that section out and replace it, or is it still good to go for another rain event?
It might be good to go for another rain event, but I mean, you can always just cut it out. Like that's it. It's an inexpensive BMP too, by the way. I mean, you're talking for a 4-foot roll, you're maybe looking at $40 max. Whereas like 100, it's 4x1, either 112.5 or 4x150. Whereas like silt fence that is used in that same kind of application can be anywhere from $60 to $80 a roll. So you know what I mean? So you can, it's half the cost. So replacing that section, sure. Or I personally would probably try to blow that out or sweep it first without having to replace it, but you can certainly do that.
Mm-hmm. And how much is it again? $40 for how much?
112 feet. Some of the rolls are 150. And please keep in mind, that's going to vary depending on what your market is. So I'm not trying to get into market pricing or anything like that. I'm just giving like a rough example.
Okay, thanks. Certainly the different distributors might have a little bit different pricing. So
sure.
So for our COSWA members that are here, I wanted to mention real quick, I believe that Jeff's chapter of the IECA is still offering a discounted membership for any new IECA members that are also members of COSWA. You could potentially get a discount on your IECA membership, and they do have a conference coming up in a couple weeks down in Fort Worth, and I just posted a link to that in the chat as well. As a reminder, if anybody wants a certificate of attendance for this, just give me an email letting me know, and I'll be happy to get that to you. And we will be posting a recording of this video onto our COSWA YouTube page. Got lots of kudos in chat, so good job, Jeff. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any further questions, we can hang out here for just a little bit. Or did you have any closing thoughts yourself, Jeff?
No, I just wanted to say, if we can see you down in Fort Worth, like Rebecca mentioned, that would be fantastic. But I will also mention that we are having our annual chapter conference in Denton this year. You know, we were in Oklahoma City, which COSWA and the city of Oklahoma City really stepped up and helped us plan and execute that conference. We're taking the same thing down to the city of Denton, which is not too far from y'all. If you want to make a drive down, and that'll be for a couple days in early October. So, you know, hopefully we can see you at either event. That'd be awesome.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again. And I guess that'll conclude today's webinar. But again, if anybody had any further questions, we'll hang out here for just another like one or 2 minutes. So
we're at liberty to.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.